Hello everybody, welcome back to Heart and Homestead, where we talk about my allotment garden and my home garden. I've not really been able to do anything at the allotment this week because it is up to my ankles in water. I have been shopping, I have got most of my seeds now, and I have written down my plan for the allotment for the year. So I thought that I would share that with everybody. I'm on the east coast of England, slightly inland near Hull. My zone is 8B. I do find our season for growing sticks very much with the actual seasons. Our last frost last year was actually on the 10th of May. Right, so let's talk about plans this year. First thing I'm going to do is tell you what I'm not going to be planting this year. I'm not going to grow broad beans. I'm not going to grow runner beans either. We just don't like them. Courgettes. I like courgettes. However, you get really bored of them. They don't freeze well, they don't store well. So I'd rather have some other things that I've got instead that are quite similar. I mean, they're in the squash family. I'll tell you about those in a minute. I'm not going to grow spinach. I like spinach, but I don't use it in my cooking often enough to take up that much room from a spinach plant that bolt very, very quickly. And on the same vein, chard, we don't like it. I grew a massive chard plant this year. It's huge. It took up half a bed and I do not like it. Brussels sprouts. Brussels sprouts were such a disappointment this year. I actually grew what I thought was, what did I think it was? I bought some plug plants really late in the year just to see if I could get anything else out of it. And they were supposed to be broccoli. And I mean, they kind of all look the same, don't they, to an inexperienced eye when you first buy plug plants. You think, well, they are what they are. They were not. They were Brussels sprouts. And they all got eaten anyway. They were undercover. They all got eaten. I had a real bad issue with purple aphids on them. So I won't be growing those either. Right then. So, potatoes. Love potatoes. I wanted to try something a bit different. So I went to one of my local garden centres. We've got loads here. It's a Klondike, and they have instead of just big bags, they have some really cool and different varieties in small packs. I think there's about 6 tubers in each pack, and they're like £1.50. And I got some varieties that I've not seen before. So I got some of these Red Duke of Yorks. We all know what these are like. They're absolutely brilliant all-round potatoes. I love them for roast potatoes. I really do. We had these at Christmas. These were saved. And when I moved into my plot, I found lots of volunteer potatoes. And that's what they were. So I'm going to grow these this year. The other first early I've got is Arran Pilot. These are quite an old breed of potato, and these are great for new potatoes. I have some main crops. I'm quite excited actually. I've got some King Edward main crops, really standard main crop, nice and big. We love baked potatoes. They're perfect for it. So that's King Edward. Now this one, the next one, I've never grown before. It's called Arran Victory, and this is one of the ones they recommended people to grow in the Dig for Victory campaign in World War II. And they have blue skins. They're actually like bright purple skins, but they call them blue skins, and they're really yellow inside. So hopefully you can see these. They look amazing, don't they? I'm really looking forward to these. They're not huge, but just look at them. Look how amazing they look. Look at that on there with the rosemary and salt and pepper. It looks good, doesn't it? So all of these varieties I'm going to grow in my biggest bed at the allotment. My biggest bed is 3 meters 20 by 2 meters. So all of these are going in that bed. At the allotment, you've seen the cage that I built out of wood. I cover it in poly material if it's going to be used as a poly house. I covered it in netting if it's going to be used as a brassica cage. Last year I grew brassicas in it. So in the spirit of crop rotation, this year I'm going to grow beans and peas in there. I don't like runner or broad bean varieties, but I do very much like climbing French beans, dwarf beans, and dwarf and climbing pea varieties. So this year I am going to grow the poker dwarf French beans. Now on here they look a little bit yellow, and so I checked out thinking maybe it's just colour on the thing, but they grow yellow. So I'm really looking forward to this. They're quite heavy cropping, and they're continuous croppers, as all beans are, for quite a long time. This year my beans carried on cropping well into the end of October. So these are going to be absolutely brilliant. I have some climbing French bean seeds that I saved myself. They're quite hardy. This is why I want to grow them again, because I planted them. They appeared to die and be eaten, even though they were covered. And then all of a sudden, a few weeks later, they were back and growing, and they were vigorous, and they were very heavy producers, and they were delicious. So I have saved this seed. I don't know what to call it because I don't know what it was, but these were grown. I bought them from Castle Howard, and they were grown by a nursery near Castle Howard. So I have some Castle Howard beans. I'm just going to call them the Castle Howard variety. But in the spirit of, what do we call it? I can't remember what it's called. Well, the seed is used to my ground now. So I'm going to sow those. I have some purple TP French beans, but they've not arrived yet, so I can't show you those. They're just a purple variety of a dwarf bean. They don't climb, they stay quite short. So I'm going to plant some of those in the cage. I'm also going to plant some of those at home so my kids can get involved in that. Next up, we've got sweet corn. I'm going to be growing Swift F1. I grew these last year. I had massive cobs. They were sweet. They were juicy. They grew with no problem. And I didn't have any issues with them being eaten. Like everybody else on the allotment said they did. And I saw devastation, even in my next door neighbours, but I didn't have a problem with them. And I'm wondering if that's actually because I allowed my pumpkins and squashes to grow in between them. And as anybody who's grown pumpkins and squashes will know, they are a little bit prickly. So we have about 70 seeds here. Last year, my only regret with sweet corn is I didn't sow enough. I had maybe 15, 20 plants, and that sweet corn was gone within a couple of weeks. So I'm dedicating 2 whole beds to sweet corn this year. Carrots. I grew carrots in my heavy clay soil ground last year. There were early Nantes, I think 2, and they grew brilliantly for me. They came up fast, they were big, they were long, and I had no problems with carrot root fly. I did keep them covered though, so that's probably why. And I didn't get any forking or weird shapes. They were absolutely brilliant. So I decided that this year I'll grow those again. But I'm also going to grow the Autumn King. I know these get an awful lot bigger, and I just want to have a bash. And I think these are pretty root fly resistant too. But I don't take chances with my carrots, and I cover them all of the time. And I've decided I wanted to do something a bit fancy, and I have some Chantenay carrots. They're the red cord Chantenay carrots, so they'll be lovely and sweet and tender, and I think great served with really nice fillet steak. Oh yeah. I'm making myself hungry with some of those King Edward potatoes. So yeah, I'm going to grow those. One of my packets of leeks has not arrived yet. And those are, let me just check, Swiss Giant. I've ordered some Swiss Giant Zermatt variety, just because I really wanted to see how big I can get them. And locally, we do have a show in August. And I just really wanted to grow things and maybe perhaps enter a few things in our local show. Maybe some leeks would be nice, and maybe some of my nice climbing beans, although they were not ready last year. I also have some lion leeks. These are the prize takers, and these prize takers also get really fat. So those, and also the Musselburgh leeks. I haven't got a packet of those yet, but I'm going to pick one up when I'm in the shop next, because we all know Musselburghs work really well. Swedes, best of all. That's the variety, not just because I'm growing them. My Swedes didn't work last year, and I was absolutely gutted, because they are probably my favourite vegetable of all, next to potatoes. So this year I'm going to just attempt to grow a few of them. I'm not going to give over a full bed to things that are going to fail. So I'll have maybe 1 or 2 of these at home and 4 or 5 at the allotment. I'm not going to go too bad. I mean, I don't know if you know, but Swedes take up a lot of space, and I do have a very small allotment. So I'm going to attempt it. Let's see how I do. Kale, I haven't got this, seed hasn't arrived yet, but I have bought Nero di Toscana, which is black Tuscan kale. Last year I grew curly kale, which was really good. It did very, very well, and it grows up in these massive big leaves, big curly leaves, and I really enjoyed making like baked kale, and I added it to all of my stews as greens, and it was really nice early on in the year as well. I mean, if you cook kale in the oven very briefly with salt and with a bit of oil and salt and pepper, it's just amazing. And this one is where the leaves come up straight and quite compact, and they look quite sturdy, and they're different. So I thought I'll try those. Broccoli, currently don't have that seed either, because they came from the same place and they're all a bit late. And that is the Rab broccoli, and it's Cimo di Ropa, which is Italian. And I also have some Calabrese normal broccoli on the way too. I did not get any broccoli last year, because what I thought was broccoli was actually sprouts. Don't make that mistake. Parsnips, Gladiator F1, apparently very reliable, but last year none of my parsnips germinated at all. I think in September I saw some strange leaves, and I was like, what's this? What's this next to my chard? And it was a parsnip that had germinated, and the parsnip was the size of a needle, and they just didn't do anything, so I gave up. But this year I'm going to make a really concerted effort, because out of everything I want to grow this year, swede and parsnips are 2. Potato, then swede, then parsnips, then carrots. That's my order of favourite vegetables. We love parsnips. Honey roasted parsnips, you can't beat them. So this year I'm going to really concentrate on trying to get some parsnips. I'm also going to try and grow some cauliflower, and I've just got all year round, which I think probably everybody's going to have. And last year they did really well until cabbage whites, and the door of my brassica cage broke. So this year these are going to be grown under hooped beds that are netted. In fact, almost everything I grow this year is going to be under hooped beds that are netted. So all the year round cauliflower. I forgot to tell you about cabbages. So I've got a couple of cabbages here. One is April pointed cabbage. I love pointed cabbages. And the other one is Consulate F1. But these, normally you have to sow them and then wait till the next year to get them. I can sow these later on in the year for some harvests next spring. For harvests this year, I haven't got these seeds yet, but I'm going to grow Greyhound pointed cabbage and Wheeler's Imperial. Greyhound, absolute favourite, really reliable, absolutely beautiful, and I really enjoy it. I'm also going to try this year some Savoys. I've not really researched much, and I'm going to try not to, because I have a lot of people telling me that don't grow them, they're hard work. But the people the vegetables where I've been told they're hard work are the vegetables where I've had the most success, and the ones where I've been told they're easy, for example, beetroots, I've really struggled with. So I'll have a go. Right, squashes. So this year, I'm going to try the famous Uchiki curry. Everybody grows these, and I always just think they look so pretty, and I am really excited to try these because apparently they're just exceptionally sweet, and I really, really do like a good squash. So I'm going to grow these in the pumpkin patch at the allotment, along with Crown Prince, of which I have had much success, and I still have 3 large Crown Prince sat in my kitchen. So Uchiki Curry and Crown Prince are going to be my squashes, my big squashes this year, although I know it's not that big. And I am also going to grow butternut squash. This one is Sweet Max F1. Last year I grew, it began with W, and I can't remember what it was. I keep thinking Wheeler's Imperial, but I'm pretty sure that's a cabbage, isn't it? I grew those last year, but they really did not take off till basically the Crown Prince had died back, and then all of a sudden I got 3 butternut squash on one plant. The other plant didn't even make it. So this year I'm going to grow these butternut squash over an arch that I have. And hopefully I get lots more butternut squash this year. I may also add another variety to grow in my big patch, but we'll see. Now, I have got 2 very small patty pan style squashes. The first one is a Pattison Orange, which is on order and hasn't arrived yet. That is the one that I am going to let grow all around the sweet corn. And then I also have a normal, just patty pan squash. They're the same thing. One's orange, one's not. This looks green, but it will most probably go yellow. And I'm going to grow this in the pumpkin patch too over another arch. So that is it for the allotment this year for vegetables. I do have a large area that I'm going to be growing dahlias in. I'll talk about them when sowing seeds. Another thing I just want to talk about briefly is last year I had some pests. One of the good things when you've had your allotment for a year or more, you sort of get used to the weather that you've had over the winter and what pests that might bring. Now, we have had a very wet winter, but we have also had some prolonged cold snaps, which tend to kill off slugs. Last year, I didn't have a problem with slugs, so I'm guessing this year I'm going to have a problem with them. I did have a problem with wireworm last year in my potatoes and leeks. I also had a little bit of an issue with allium leaf miner. So I'm just going to talk very quickly about my plans for making sure that doesn't happen this year. So for the wireworm and the slugs, I am going to buy nematodes. Some English people call them nematodes. I just say nematodes because that's what I call them. And these are little sort of parasitic beans that are not harmful to us humans. They feed only on the intended pest. You mix them up with water and you water the area that they're going to be on. It works. People use beer traps. They use all sorts of methods, slug pellets, wool, and wool does very much work. But I am going to use nematodes this year for the wireworms and the slugs because I am just not mucking around. The wireworm ruined all of my leeks last year. It ruined half of my potatoes. And quite simply, I'm not going to leave it to chance. I'm just going to get rid of them. The allium leaf mine, you can't really do anything about except for cover your crops. So this year, one of the things I'm doing is covering everything. Everything pretty much is going to be in a hoop bed and covered because everything gets eaten by some kind of flying thing. I had a real bad problem with woolly aphids on my fruit trees. I had to really prune them hard. I've had problems with purple aphids and cabbage butterfly larvae, as well as normal white aphids. So everything is getting covered in netting. Full stop. That's the only way I can deal with that. So that covers how I'm going to deal with allium leaf miner and aphids. I planted my garlic and onion sets a bit later this year, and I did that to avoid the November allium leaf miner flights. I don't know if you can see this. I was going to show it at the beginning, so I might edit that in or I might leave it here. This is like a a very crude plan of my plot. As you can see, here is the entrance. It's very long and thin. So here is my pumpkin area, which is about 3 meters by 3 meters. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 beds are 3 meters by 1.5. This bed's slightly larger at 3.2 by 2 meters. I have then my flower area, which also has my wineberry arch in it. My caged area, which will have all my peas and beans in this year. And then I have a couple of cold frames on the other side of it, and my shed. So this is just what it looks like. And when I'm planning, I always draw it out, and I have a column here about what was in it last year and what any problems or pests or anything that I know I need to treat this year. Because I do follow crop rotation, because I mean it works, doesn't it? So I do that, and more to come about that on another video. And then I write what I'm going to do here. When I start sowing, we're going to do the video where we talk about all of those things, because I do things slightly different than a lot of people do. I like to make things easier for myself. I am also got a very busy brain, and I forget things really easy. So I have to just try and make things easy for myself. And I'm not one to follow the rules just because the rules are there. I think sometimes if you want to have joy in allotment gardening and you find organisation difficult, you've got to make things easy. And so I do that. Right. If you stayed to the end of this video, thank you very much. I know it was a long one, but it's been really nice actually to do this format. I feel like it's nice just sitting down with a friend talking about what plans I've got for the year. I've told you my plans. I would really love to hear what your plans are, and please do view the other videos on my playlist, because I have lots of tours of the allotment, particularly the first allotment tour. I did that before anything had started growing yet last year, so it gives a really clear layout of the allotment and what it looks like. I do have a playlist called Epic Gardening, which takes you through the journey so far. So I hope that you will watch those and get up to date if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one.